Today, we are going to look at streamers who died while streaming live, from an accidental electrocution that viewers thought was a joke, to a man who tried to show his strength only to be betrayed by it. Let's dive straight in. It was June 14th, 2022, in Los Angeles, California. The temperature outside stayed warm even past midnight. Inside one apartment on the city's west side, the glow from a pastel-lit bedroom filled a second-floor window. From the street, the flicker of colored lights and faint sound of soft music gave away what was happening inside. A live broadcast already in progress. The woman on camera was 24-year-old content creator Madison Hale, a small but growing beauty influencer known for testing affordable skincare gadgets. Her streaming space looked polished yet simple. A white desk lined with small bottles, 2 ring lights on either side, and an open laptop where messages from her viewers scrolled non-stop. It was her usual late-night setup: calm music in the background, chat moving fast, and Madison chatting comfortably with her audience. That night's stream began as a late-night skin Q&A. Madison held up a small silver device, a handheld laser pen sent by a skincare startup hoping for exposure. She explained that it was supposed to tighten skin around the jawline and reduce fine lines. The product wasn't widely sold in the US yet, which made it more appealing to her followers. She said she wanted to test it live so everyone could see the results in real time. At first, everything looked normal. Madison pressed the tip of the device against her lower cheek, talking casually about her new sponsorship. A faint buzz came from the pen, and a soft red light appeared on her skin. She said it tingled but didn't hurt. Laughing, she compared it to static electricity. Her viewers joked back, telling her to be careful. She continued moving the laser upward along her face, explaining how to angle it correctly. Roughly 30 minutes into the stream, she switched to her right temple, leaning closer to the camera for a clearer view. She said she wanted to test how close it could get to the hairline without discomfort. The background music stayed calm and nothing seemed off. Then, as she pressed the button again, a quick spark flashed near her temple. A wisp of smoke curled upward through her hair. Madison flinched, and the camera jostled as if she had bumped the desk. She didn't speak again. Her hand froze mid-air, still holding the device. For several seconds, she sat upright, eyes half-focused on the screen. The chat scrolled with laughing emojis, some viewers thinking she was pretending. Others commented that her camera had frozen, but the lo-fi playlist kept playing without interruption. More messages started appearing in the chat, with viewers expressing confusion and concern as they noticed she wasn't moving. Her moderators began typing rapidly, trying to get a response. A few longtime viewers posted that she had been motionless for over a minute. Still, the stream continued, music looping while Madison sat still under pink light. At around the 10-minute mark, confusion turned to panic. Some viewers clipped the moment the spark appeared and shared it online. Others said her breathing looked uneven. The chat slowed, replaced by messages from viewers urging someone to check on her. The number of live viewers didn't drop. People kept joining, unsure if they were watching a real emergency. After nearly 20 minutes of silence, the stream shut down automatically when the system detected no activity. The screen turned black without warning. When her channel refreshed later that night, the thumbnail showed her final frame. Hand raised, head slightly tilted, and the laser still visible near her temple. Authorities ruled the cause of death as accidental electrocution during a product demonstration. 2 weeks later, the company recalled the device, and her account was permanently closed. It was October 4th, 2016, in Córdoba province, Argentina. The morning sky was overcast, and a light wind pushed dust across the open fields. The sounds of roosters and distant cattle echoed from nearby farms. In a small valley, a fenced corral stood behind a white farmhouse where 31-year-old Emiliano Torres had already started his day. The camera on his phone faced the barnyard, showing a worn gate, a feeding trough, and a large brown bull pacing slowly inside the enclosure. Emiliano was known online for his quiet, early morning streams that showed life on a small farm. His channel had only a few hundred viewers, most of them other farmers who liked his practical advice about livestock care. That morning, he told his audience that he needed to fix part of the fence that his bull, Moro, had damaged the day before. His phone rested against a wooden post while he talked about how strong the animal had become since the last season. The sound of birds and the squeak of his boots filled the audio. He walked toward the gate holding a bucket of grain. The camera tilted slightly as he set it down and began untying the latch. Moro stood on the other side, heavy and restless, his hooves shifting in the dirt. Emiliano spoke calmly as he tossed some feed over the fence, explaining that keeping the bull fed first made repairs easier. Wind gusts brushed over the microphone, muffling his words, but his tone stayed relaxed. Viewers in the chat typed short greetings and asked questions about the animal's size. After a few minutes, Emiliano opened the gate halfway and stepped inside the pen. He carried a small hammer in one hand and held the bucket in the other. Moro turned his head sharply, lowering it toward the ground. Emiliano tried to keep space between them, waving his jacket once as he moved closer to the damaged fence post. The bull let out a low grunt, pawed at the dirt, then began moving toward him faster. The phone's image shook slightly as the ground vibrated from the bull's movement. Emiliano backed away but slipped on the damp soil near the trough. The metal bucket fell, scattering feed across the ground. The bull's head hit him square in the chest, pushing him backward against the wooden rail. The camera tilted sideways, landing on the ground at an angle. For a few seconds, the lens showed nothing but dirt, hooves, and a blur of motion. Audio from the stream caught heavy breathing and scraping sounds. Viewers heard shouts in Spanish from off-camera as two nearby workers ran toward the enclosure. One yelled for the bull to back away while another tried to grab a stick through the fence. The sounds of hooves striking wood echoed, followed by silence. The feed continued streaming for several minutes, showing only the ground and the corner of the broken gate. The camera remained live as one of the workers approached and lifted it briefly before the image cut to black. By then, most of the chat had gone still. A few viewers typed messages asking if everything was okay, but there were no replies. Later, authorities confirmed that the bull had struck Emiliano multiple times before retreating toward the far end of the pen. By the time paramedics arrived, Emiliano had already died from internal injuries. The phone was recovered face down in the mud beside the trough. When investigators replayed the stream, it ended with only the faint buzz of flies and the rustle of wind across the barnyard. It was May 9, 2020, in Taichung, Taiwan. The city was quiet that night, most windows dim except for a few apartment lights scattered across the skyline. In one small studio on the 5th floor of a narrow building, the faint glow of colored LEDs filled a single room. A microphone sat on a short desk beside a glass of water, surrounded by foam panels meant to block outside noise. Inside that room, 29-year-old Lin Yu-sin was live on her usual overnight ASMR stream. Her channel had a small but steady audience who watched her soft-spoken videos to relax at night. She lived alone, and most of her streams ran for several hours. Her setup was simple: a desk microphone, ring light, and a laptop connected to an external webcam. That night's stream started around midnight and followed her usual long overnight format. Hundreds of viewers were watching as Lin began reading messages from subscribers in a calm, low tone. The sound of tapping glass and light crinkling filled the feed. Her pace stayed steady for hours, broken only by the quiet hum of the computer fan. Around 3:20 a.m., Lin was reading one of the chat comments when she stopped mid-sentence and reached toward her neck. Her voice came out uneven for a moment before she mentioned feeling a bit dizzy. The microphone caught the sound clearly, followed by the faint clink of her picking up the glass of water. She took a sip and said she was fine, then leaned forward slightly toward the camera again. Viewers noticed that her posture seemed off, her left shoulder tilting lower than usual. A few commented that she looked tired, thinking it was part of the relaxed tone she kept for these streams. Someone pointed out that her left eye looked half closed, but most brushed it off, joking that she must have been falling asleep after so many hours awake. Over the next minute, she spoke less and less. The tapping sounds stopped, replaced by the steady low hum of background noise. Without warning, Lynn's head dropped forward, and her upper body slid slightly out of the camera frame. Her chair creaked once, then stayed still. The microphone continued to record faint breathing sounds, slow and uneven, for several minutes. The chat activity picked up, with some viewers typing questions about whether she had fallen asleep early. After about 5 minutes, the breathing grew softer, until it was barely audible. The camera stayed on the same empty part of the frame, the edge of the desk and the side of her chair. Some viewers assumed it was an intentional silent sleep segment that ASMR streamers often used. Others began time-stamping the moment she stopped speaking, wondering if it was part of a planned performance. 2 long-time viewers who had private contact through a moderator link tried calling her through the app's messaging system, but no one answered. They sent repeated messages in both English and Mandarin, thinking there might be a technical issue. The chat became a mix of confusion and jokes, with a few users asking if anyone had her local number. No response came from Lynn's side. The broadcast continued like that for hours. Background noise faded in and out as the microphone automatically adjusted to the silence. Occasionally, a soft mechanical hum from outside drifted through the mic. By morning, the live stream had run for nearly 6 hours straight, without movement or sound from the streamer. When moderators in a different time zone logged on around 8 a.m., they ended the broadcast and replaced the thumbnail with a plain gray screen marked unavailable. Later reports confirmed that Lynn had suffered a sudden cerebral aneurysm while on camera. The faint breathing picked up by her microphone matched the brief window between collapse and loss of consciousness. The coroner's report ruled the cause of death as a ruptured aneurysm. Her channel has remained offline since. It was August 28, 2018, in Chiang Mai, Thailand. The air was thick with the smell of grilled meat and charcoal smoke drifting through the market rows. The sun had already dropped behind the trees, but the food stalls were still busy with evening customers. Neon bulbs flickered above plastic tables, while vendors called out prices in quick bursts of Thai. Among them, a tripod stood at the edge of one stall. Its small camera pointed toward a man with a plate of skewers in front of him. Daniel Reyes, 27, was a travel vlogger from California who has been filming food adventures around Southeast Asia for almost a year. His channel focused on local street food, simple meals, and casual chats with people he met along the way. He preferred small towns and outdoor markets over city restaurants. That night, he was streaming live from a rural food market on the outskirts of Chiang Mai, showing his audience the everyday side of Thai street food. Daniel had been filming for about 20 minutes, talking to a vendor while trying grilled pork skewers. His viewers left messages in the chat asking about the spices and prices. He smiled and replied between bites, translating short phrases from Thai with help from the vendor's teenage son. Laughter from nearby stalls mixed with the low hum of the crowd. As he turned to face the camera again, a hornet buzzed close to the lens. The sound was sharp enough to cut through the microphone. Daniel waved it away with the back of his hand, brushing near his shoulder. The insect circled once before flying toward his neck. A short yelp came through the feed, followed by a quick movement of his hand brushing the area. He muttered a few words to the locals, rubbing the side of his neck. His viewers heard him say something about a sting, but his tone stayed light. A few seconds later, he reached for his water bottle and took a sip, still talking to the camera. His voice started sounding slightly strained, lower and slower than before. He told the vendor he was fine and turned back toward the tripod. His breathing was audible through the microphone now, uneven but still steady. Viewers typed comments about his voice change, some joking that the chili must have been too spicy. About 2 minutes passed before he began to show real difficulty breathing. He coughed once and leaned on the table, trying to steady himself. He told someone nearby that he felt unwell, his speech faint. The vendor and her son looked confused until they noticed his face turning pale. The stream caught the sound of chairs scraping and several people shouting in Thai. Daniel tried to stand but lost balance, knocking into the tripod as he went down. The camera shifted sideways, now pointed toward the dirt ground and the bottom edge of the stall. Feet moved in and out of frame as people gathered around. The sound of overlapping voices filled the feed. some yelling for water, others shouting for someone who had a car. One voice, speaking English with a Thai accent, asked if anyone had an epinephrine injector. No one did. For the next minute, the stream showed only motion and noise. Someone tried to loosen his shirt collar, and another person repeated short phrases to keep him responsive. His breathing became louder, followed by a long pause and scattered shouting. The sound of traffic from the road cut through the background. Then a hand appeared over the lens, covering it with a cloth. The image went dark, but the audio continued briefly, capturing the sounds of people moving hurriedly and someone saying to call for help. The feed ended seconds later. Later accounts from the vendors confirmed that Daniel had been stung just below the jawline by a hornet common in the region. The sting triggered a rapid allergic reaction that caused his airway to swell before medical help could arrive. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The channel went quiet that night, and the video was removed the following day. It was November 2nd, 2020 in Singapore City. A light rain had left the streets slick, reflecting red and green traffic lights across the asphalt. Cars and scooters moved carefully through downtown. At one intersection, an e-scooter rider streamed his route live, a phone mounted to his chest capturing every turn. The rider was 25-year-old Alvin Lim, a part-time food courier who liked to stream his nightly routes for a small online audience. His streams were simple, no edits, no music, just the sounds of city traffic and passing chatter from his viewers. He spoke to the camera occasionally, joking about long hours and unpredictable weather. The night had started calmly. He was finishing a delivery from a noodle shop near Orchard Road and chatting about which route would get him home fastest before the rain picked up again. As he waited at a light, Alvin pointed his camera toward the skyline, showing the reflections of tall glass buildings through the drizzle. His viewers teased him about the blurry image, and he laughed, saying the lens fogged up whenever he stopped moving. The sound of distant thunder carried through the mic. When the light turned green, he pushed off smoothly, weaving between slow-moving cars. The traffic was moderate, nothing unusual for that time of night. The stream captured the sound of tires hissing against wet pavement and the low hum of his scooter motor. A few donation alerts popped up on screen, the mechanical voice reading out short messages. Alvin responded to one, mentioning he would cut through Orchard before the rain got worse. His tone stayed casual as he adjusted his position and kept one hand on the handlebar. A few minutes later, the camera shifted slightly as he rode toward an intersection near a row of closed shops. Streetlights glowed off the rain-slicked road. A small group of pedestrians stood under an awning, waiting for the crosswalk signal. The feed showed the timestamp and a steady stream of viewer comments scrolling up the side of the screen. Alvin slowed briefly, then turned his head slightly toward the phone as another donation message came through. At the same moment, a gray sedan from the opposite lane began to turn left into the intersection without signaling. The car's movement cut directly across Alvin's path. The camera image jolted hard, followed by the sound of skidding tires and a quick metallic thud. The stream shook violently, blurring between bright lights and asphalt. For less than a second, headlights filled the frame before the camera dropped sideways. The audio captured the scraping of metal and the splash of water as the scooter slid across the wet ground. Several sharp voices shouted in the background, people calling out in both English and Mandarin. The camera came to rest at an angle, showing only part of the street and a line of headlights pointing toward the scene. Rain continued tapping against the microphone, distorting the sound. For a few moments, the stream stayed active. The image remained tilted, headlights glaring into the lens, while passing vehicles slowed near the intersection. Chat messages kept appearing, most viewers thinking the stream had frozen or that Alvin's camera had fallen. Some typed jokes, others asked if he had dropped his phone again, something that had happened in past streams. Witnesses later told authorities they saw the scooter slide about 15 feet before stopping near the curb. Several riders from nearby shops ran toward the intersection, waving for cars to slow down. One of them reached for the phone still strapped to Alvin's chest and turned it face down to stop the flashing light. The live feed froze shortly after, locking on a blurred shot of headlights reflected in puddles. Viewers kept commenting for several minutes, unaware that what they were watching was real. The video ended automatically when the stream lost connection. Police later confirmed that the crash occurred at 9:40 p.m. at the corner of Cairnhill Road, where Alvin was struck on his right side and died at the scene from severe trauma. His channel stopped uploading after that night. The final image, those blurred headlights, remained on replay for hours before the platform removed the video. It was September 11, 2017, in Suceava County, Romania. The afternoon was cool and quiet, sunlight fading behind thin clouds. Dirt roads ran between small houses with worn fences, leading out toward open fields of dry grass and brush. From a distance, the faint sound of barking dogs echoed across the countryside. 30-year-old Irina Dobre, a Romanian travel vlogger, was live on her small channel that afternoon. She had built a modest following by exploring rural areas most travelers never visited. Her videos were simple, just a handheld camera, natural sound, and her steady voice describing each place she found. That day's stream started as she walked through a remote part of Suceava County, heading toward an abandoned Orthodox chapel known among locals for its faded murals and broken bell tower. The live broadcast had been running for about 20 minutes. Viewers could see uneven dirt paths, old wooden fences, and low houses with tin roofs reflecting bits of sunlight. The sound of her footsteps mixed with distant wind and the occasional bark from far away. Irina's chat moved slowly, dozens of viewers watching as she pointed her camera toward the horizon and talked about the chapel she was hoping to find. At one point, she stopped to check her phone for directions and adjusted the small tripod she used as a grip. As she walked farther from the village center, the sound of barking grew closer. She turned the camera slightly, showing a narrow path that cut between two open fields. A small group of dogs could be seen moving near the edge of the frame, thin, tan-colored strays that seemed to be following from a distance. Stray dogs were common in the region, especially near abandoned properties, and most travelers learned to keep their distance. Irina mentioned that they had been following for a few minutes but didn't seem aggressive. A minute later, the barking intensified. The stream's audio caught wind gusts and short, uneven sounds of movement. Irina shifted the camera, and several dogs were now visible, closing in from different directions. She stopped walking and held out her tripod in front of her. The dogs circled slowly, growling. For a few seconds, the feed showed her trying to back away toward the dirt road, keeping the camera aimed forward. The barking grew louder and sharper. The microphone picked up a short command as she tried to drive them off. The camera shook suddenly, dropping toward the ground and showing a spinning view of grass and sky. A scream followed, then the sound of snarling and movement near the microphone. The image blurred as the phone shifted, its lens partly covered by dirt. People watching live began typing frantically, unsure if it was real. Some thought it was staged, while others started posting timestamps in the chat where the noise first changed. The stream continued for about 15 more seconds, filled with static and wind. Then, the feed cut out completely. Witnesses later told authorities they had heard shouts and barking from about 50 yards away, but hadn't seen what happened until they reached the path minutes later. Paramedics arrived soon after and tried to stabilize her, but the injuries were too severe. She was pronounced dead on arrival at the nearest medical center. It was August 7, 2018, when 22-year-old Haley Prescott made the decision that would end her life in the crumbling ruins of Detroit's abandoned Packard automotive plant. Haley had always been drawn to danger. Standing 5 feet 6 inches with an athletic build from rock climbing, she possessed a fearless spirit that made her parents lose sleep. After dropping out of Wayne State's communications program, she worked part-time at a vintage store in Corktown, but her real passion was urban exploration. Her YouTube channel, Urban Haley, had 5,000 subscribers who watched her navigate abandoned buildings across the Midwest. Her personality mixed thrill-seeking bravado with genuine curiosity about forgotten places. 3 weeks before that fateful night, she had slipped on wet concrete during exploration, telling her roommate it could have been worse. The close call should have been a warning, but for Haley, it only added excitement. The Packard plant represented the ultimate challenge. Recent arrests of other explorers made it notorious, which meant successfully streaming from there would generate significant views and donations from her primarily teenage male audience. She arrived at 11:47 p.m. in steady rain, wearing worn hiking boots. The 4.2 pounds of streaming equipment strapped to her chest affected her balance. Her live stream began with 1,247 viewers as she entered the structurally compromised building. The chat exploded with excitement and donations, encouraging increasingly dangerous stunts. For 23 minutes, she explored lower floors, her headlamp cutting through darkness as she narrated the building's automotive history. The rain had intensified, creating treacherous conditions above. At 12:15 a.m., she reached the fourth floor, where decades of neglect had created gaps in the flooring and exposed twisted rebar. Water dripped through roof holes, making every surface slick. Chat members, emboldened by anonymity, demanded she climb higher, backing requests with donations that pinged through her phone. At 12:31 a.m., Haley faced a 3-foot gap with a 40-foot drop to machinery below. Viewers had donated over $60 in 5 minutes, all requesting she make the jump. She backed up, took a running start, and leaped. Her worn boot treads, compromised by wet concrete, failed to find purchase on the landing. She desperately reached for rebar before gravity claimed her. The fall lasted 2.3 seconds. She landed on industrial machinery, a metal beam penetrating her abdomen and causing massive internal bleeding. Her chest-mounted camera shattered, but her phone continued streaming audio. For 3 agonizing minutes, viewers heard her labored breathing fade to silence. Multiple viewers called 911, but the audio-only stream made it nearly impossible for emergency services to locate her. Emergency responders arrived at 1:15 a.m., beginning systematic search. 20 minutes later, they found Haley's body. She was pronounced dead from traumatic injuries and massive internal bleeding. She was just 22. The aftermath rippled through communities. Detroit police increased patrols at exploration sites, though budget constraints prevented comprehensive security. Haley's parents attempted starting a safety campaign, but struggled with limited resources. The streaming platform added basic location warnings, but stopped short of requiring equipment verification. Her death became a case study about viewer responsibility and the ethics of encouraging dangerous behavior through donations. Haley Prescott's story serves as a stark reminder that pursuing digital fame can exact the ultimate price, and that anonymous voices encouraging risk bear no responsibility for consequences. It was June 22, 2019, when 25-year-old Morgan Ellsworth made the decision that would end his life in the most violent way imaginable. The Phoenix mechanic had built his Speed Demon AZ channel to 8,000 subscribers by filming illegal street races in his modified Dodge Challenger, a beast pumping out 850 horsepower through modifications he'd installed at his uncle's auto shop. Morgan's impulsive personality and desperate need for validation had nearly killed him 2 months earlier when he spun out at high speed, later joking to followers about his guardian angel working overtime. But that close call only fed his addiction to cheating death while thousands watched online. His competitive nature demanded more extreme content, more dangerous speeds, more heart-stopping moments that translated into donations and subscriber growth. The plan was simple yet insane. Celebrate hitting 10,000 subscribers by breaking 200 miles per hour on Interstate 10. Morgan had scouted a 15-mile stretch known for minimal late-night traffic and limited police presence. What he hadn't accounted for was construction work that would turn his highway into a death trap. At 2:17 a.m., Morgan went live after consuming 3 energy drinks and unprescribed Adderall, a cocktail that sharpened his focus while destroying his judgment. His 1,156 viewers flooded chat with encouragement and donations, each ping pushing him toward higher speeds. The stimulants made every sensation more intense while impairing his ability to process warning signs. After building anticipation from a gas station, Morgan entered the highway at 2:31 a.m., his dashboard camera capturing every moment as he accelerated through gears. At 2:44 a.m., he activated nitrous, and the Challenger launched forward like a rocket, reaching 167 miles per hour, while Morgan provided live commentary about engine temperatures and boost pressure. Construction barriers appeared at 2:47 a.m., with advance warning signs that Morgan's stimulant-addled brain failed to process. His tunnel vision, focused on the speedometer and chat messages, prevented him from recognizing the lane closure until too late. Traveling at 145 miles per hour, he attempted to brake and change lanes simultaneously, sending his rear wheels into catastrophic loss of traction. The Challenger spun violently before striking the concrete barrier at 89 miles per hour. The dashboard camera captured 2.1 seconds of initial impact before being destroyed, while Morgan's phone flew from its mount and the stream cut to black. The roof collapsed during the collision, causing massive head trauma that killed Morgan instantly. Within 30 seconds, the vehicle erupted in flames, turning his modified masterpiece into a twisted metal coffin. Emergency responders arrived at 2:54 a.m., but couldn't approach until the fire was extinguished. They found Morgan's body with fatal head injuries. The young mechanic's need for speed was finally satisfied permanently. Arizona increased fines for street racing following the incident, but didn't implement vehicle seizure laws that might have prevented similar tragedies. Morgan's family filed a lawsuit against the streaming platform, but it was dismissed under Section 230 protections. His uncle's auto shop faced investigation, but received only minor citations, as proving illegal modifications proved difficult after the crash destroyed evidence. No federal legislation emerged, though some platforms added speed-related content warnings after negative media coverage. The temporary media attention about dangerous streaming content faded quickly, and viewer behavior remained unchanged. Morgan Ellsworth had achieved his goal of internet fame, but at the ultimate cost. His final race ended not with celebration, but with a young man's life extinguished in flames on a Phoenix highway. Another cautionary tale lost in the endless scroll of online content. It was September 14, 2016, when the granite walls of Yosemite National Park claimed another life in the most preventable way imaginable. Autumn Chandler was 26 years old, a perfectionist by nature who channeled her obsessive attention to detail into two passions: freelance graphic design and extreme solo hiking. Her lean, muscular frame told the story of countless hours spent scaling California's most challenging peaks. What started as weekend adventures had evolved into something bigger. Her YouTube channel, Autumn Adventures, had attracted 12,000 subscribers who lived vicariously through her death-defying climbs. But Autumn carried a secret that gnawed at her confidence. 5 weeks earlier, a handhold had crumbled beneath her grip during a practice climb, sending her tumbling 15 feet onto unforgiving rock. The bruised ribs had healed, but the psychological scars ran deeper. She needed to prove to herself and her audience that she hadn't lost her edge. For 6 months, she had meticulously planned this climb, a 5.10D difficulty route on El Capitan that would push her technical skills to their limits. She obtained all proper permits and studied every inch of the granite face. The only questionable decision was her plan to livestream the entire ascent, despite park guidelines discouraging live broadcasting during technical climbs. At 5:47 a.m., Autumn began her approach with 23 pounds of essential climbing gear, plus an additional 2.1 pounds of streaming equipment. The extra weight seemed negligible, but every ounce mattered on a route this demanding. The stream went live at 6:23 a.m., with 847 viewers watching her methodical progress up the granite wall. For the first 180 feet, everything proceeded flawlessly. Autumn's technique was textbook perfect, each movement calculated and precise. At 7:41 a.m., she reached the technical section where holds became smaller and required absolute concentration. This was where climbers separated themselves from tourists. But instead of focusing entirely on the rock, Autumn found herself glancing at her phone screen, reading chat messages from experienced climbers offering real-time route advice. At 7:52 a.m., while processing a viewer's suggestion about hand placement, she committed her weight to what appeared to be a solid granite hold. The rock looked trustworthy, but appearances deceived. A hairline fracture from years of natural weathering had compromised its integrity. The hold exploded away from the wall. Autumn plummeted 25 feet before her safety rope caught her, but momentum swung her body into the granite face like a pendulum. Her helmet absorbed most of the impact but cracked from the force, leaving her with a severe concussion that clouded her judgment at the worst possible moment. Disoriented and struggling to think clearly, Autumn made the fatal decision to continue her descent rather than wait for rescue. Her concussed brain couldn't process the complex rope work required for safe rappelling. When she incorrectly clipped her rope at 8:17 a.m., physics took over. She fell an additional 40 feet onto a narrow ledge, her spine absorbing the full impact. The internal bleeding began immediately. Park rangers reached her location 3 hours later using specialized technical rescue equipment, but Autumn had died within minutes of hitting the ledge. The spinal cord injury and massive internal trauma were unsurvivable. The climbing community wrestled with the implications. Forums and magazines dissected every detail of the accident, leading some climbing groups to voluntarily adopt no streaming policies during difficult ascents. Yosemite added stronger warnings about filming during technical climbs, but stopped short of outright bans, citing enforcement difficulties. Autumn's family received a modest settlement from her equipment manufacturer for a minor harness defect, though investigators determined it played no role in her death. The real culprit was distraction, at a moment when complete focus meant the difference between life and death. Her death became a cautionary tale about the hidden dangers of performing for an audience when the stakes couldn't be higher. But like so many tragedies before it, the lessons learned faded as quickly as the headlines, and the granite walls of Yosemite continued their patient wait for the next climber who would confuse confidence with invincibility. It was January 8, 2018, when Riley Thatcher made her final live stream from the frozen shores of Emerald Bay at Lake Tahoe, California. Riley, a 24-year-old snowboard instructor with an insatiable appetite for danger, had built her Riley Honest channel around increasingly reckless winter stunts across the Sierra Nevada mountains. Her 8,000 subscribers craved the adrenaline-fueled content she delivered, and Riley fed off their validation like an addiction. Standing 5'6" with sun-bleached hair and calloused hands from years on the slopes, she possessed the kind of fearless confidence that made her both magnetic and reckless. The previous winter had served as a warning she chose to ignore. After falling through thin ice on a mountain lake, friends had pulled her from the frigid water while she laughed off hypothermia symptoms, joking that she was too cool to drown. That near-death experience should have been her wake-up call, but instead became another story to tell her growing audience. On this particular afternoon, an unusual 10-day cold snap had formed a deceptively thin ice sheet across a 50-foot section of Emerald Bay. Posted warnings about unstable conditions dotted the shoreline, but Riley saw only opportunity. Her 1,156 live viewers were already encouraging the dangerous crossing through donations and chat messages, many requesting she venture further onto the questionable ice for better content. At 2:14 p.m., with temperatures hovering at 22 degrees Fahrenheit, Riley began her walk across ice measuring only 1 to 2 inches thick in most areas, far below the minimum 4 inches needed for safe passage. Her heavy winter jacket and snow pants would soon become her enemy. But in that moment, she felt invincible. The first 17 minutes passed without incident, as Riley bantered with her audience, their donations and dares pushing her forward. At 2:31 p.m., approximately 30 feet from shore, ominous cracking sounds echoed beneath her boots. Chat members erupted with excitement, urging her onward despite the obvious danger. 3 minutes later, at 2:34 p.m., the inevitable happened. Riley stepped onto a section weakened by wave action underneath, and the ice gave way instantly. She plunged into 38 degrees Fahrenheit water that measured 12 feet deep at that location. her phone disappearing beneath the surface within 15 seconds, abruptly ending the stream. The shock of cold water triggered involuntary gasping as her heavy clothing became waterlogged anchors. Riley struggled desperately for approximately 2 minutes, but hypothermia worked with ruthless efficiency. Her movements became increasingly sluggish as her core temperature plummeted, and she eventually slipped beneath the surface, drowning in the dark waters of Lake Tahoe. Multiple viewers had called 911, but emergency responders arrived 18 minutes too late. Dangerous ice conditions and search difficulties prevented immediate recovery efforts, and Riley's body wasn't found until the following morning. The coroner's report confirmed death by drowning with hypothermia as a contributing factor, noting that the water temperature caused rapid loss of motor function. Lake Tahoe authorities responded by posting additional winter safety signs and increasing patrol frequency. Though budget constraints prevented major policy changes, Riley's devastated family attempted to channel their grief into a cold water safety awareness campaign, but lacked resources to establish a formal foundation. Their lawsuit against the streaming platform proved unsuccessful, leaving them with only memories and unanswered questions about social media's role in their daughter's death. The tragedy generated brief local media coverage about ice safety and social media risks, but failed to create lasting change in streaming platform policies or user behavior. Riley's channel remains frozen in time, a digital monument to the deadly intersection of thrill-seeking and online validation, where the pursuit of content ultimately cost everything. It was May 4th, 2015, when 29-year-old Kendra Vaughn made the decision that would end her promising career as both a meteorology graduate student and rising storm-chasing content creator. The ambitious young woman from Norman, Oklahoma, had built her Storm Hunter KV YouTube channel to 7,000 dedicated subscribers who followed her increasingly daring pursuits across Tornado Alley. Kendra possessed an analytical mind, shaped by years of atmospheric science coursework, but her academic knowledge had bred dangerous overconfidence in her ability to predict storm behavior. Unlike veteran chasers who respected severe weather's unpredictable nature, she relied heavily on textbook theories, often dismissing experienced field researchers' hard-earned wisdom. Her personality combined scientific curiosity with adrenaline seeking that pushed boundaries others wouldn't cross. 2 months earlier, a severe hailstorm had battered her reinforced chase vehicle, leaving spiderweb cracks across the windshield and dents covering the hood. Rather than viewing this as a warning, Kendra dismissed the incident as an occupational hazard, already planning closer approaches for more dramatic footage. On that fateful Monday afternoon, meteorological conditions were aligning for a significant tornado outbreak near Moore, Oklahoma. Kendra had been tracking an EF3 tornado for over an hour, positioning herself at what she calculated to be a safe 1.2 miles from the storm's projected path. Her academic training told her this distance provided an adequate safety margin, but she failed to account for chaotic tornado movement patterns. At 4:23 p.m., she began her live stream from inside her vehicle, providing detailed meteorological commentary to 2,847 viewers while maintaining visual contact with the massive funnel cloud. Her audience was captivated by scientific explanations mixed with raw power unfolding before their screens. Donation notifications flooded her chat as viewers requested closer footage, offering money for increasingly dramatic shots. The tornado appeared to follow its predicted northeastern track, when suddenly, at 4:41 p.m., local wind patterns caused an unexpected directional shift. The massive vortex began moving directly toward Kendra's position, at speeds exceeding her vehicle's escape capability. Her meteorological training had prepared her for many scenarios, but not for split-second decision-making when theory met deadly reality. Panic set in as she attempted emergency relocation, but her escape route was blocked by debris and other storm chasers positioned along the same road. The tornado's outer circulation, with winds exceeding 120 miles per hour, reached her vehicle before she could find an alternate path. Her reinforced chase car, designed to withstand hail and moderate winds, was no match for the tornado's incredible force. The vehicle was lifted and rolled multiple times like a toy, tumbling through the air before being thrown approximately 80 feet into a concrete culvert. The impact crushed the roof completely, causing massive head trauma that rendered Kendra unconscious immediately. Her streaming equipment was destroyed in the first rollover, cutting the live feed thousands had been watching in horror. Emergency responders reached the crash site 35 minutes after the tornado passed, but Kendra had already succumbed to her injuries within minutes of impact. The traumatic brain injury caused by the vehicle's violent collision with the culvert proved instantly fatal. The National Weather Service later used Kendra's case to emphasize storm-chasing safety protocols, though no new regulations were implemented. More updated emergency response procedures, but practical concerns prevented restrictions on storm chaser access to dangerous areas. Her streaming platform added basic severe weather warnings to meteorological content, but technical complexity prevented automatic termination features during dangerous situations. The meteorological community discussed her death extensively, leading some to voluntarily adopt stricter safety distances, though no major behavioral changes occurred. Kendra Vaughn's final chase served as a sobering reminder that academic knowledge cannot replace respect for nature's unpredictable power. It was March 15, 2017, when Crystal Bowers made the decision that would end her life in the most horrific way imaginable. Crystal was a 28-year-old data entry clerk working nights in Riverside, California. At 5 feet 4 inches and 320 pounds, she lived alone in a studio apartment where her kitchen table doubled as her streaming setup. Her bubbly personality made her popular among 5,000 regular viewers, but beneath lay deep insecurities from years of workplace bullying about her weight. Food had become both Crystal's comfort and curse. She discovered mukbang streaming 2 years earlier, finding it provided income and social connection she craved. Her viewers became her world, encouraging increasingly dangerous eating challenges. 2 weeks prior, Crystal nearly choked on Korean fried chicken during a live stream. Her face turned red as she struggled, but viewers thought it was entertainment, flooding chat with laughing emojis. She coughed it up, but the incident should have been a warning. Instead, Crystal saw opportunity. She announced a celebration stream for reaching 6,000 followers, promising to devour 4 pounds of grilled samgyeopsal in under 25 minutes. For 2 days, she barely ate, wanting to maximize her appetite. On Tuesday evening, Crystal positioned herself at her kitchen table, a large bowl overflowing with thick-cut grilled pork belly strips dominating the frame. At 7:23 p.m., she went live to 1,847 viewers, her largest audience ever. The chat exploded with excitement. Viewers urged her to eat faster, and donations poured in, demanding speed. Crystal, desperate to please, abandoned her usual measured pace, grabbing larger pieces with chopsticks, barely chewing before swallowing. At 7:34 p.m., disaster struck. Crystal grabbed an exceptionally thick piece of samgyeopsal, approximately 4 inches long and 2 inches wide. After only 2 quick chews, she swallowed the warm, fatty meat. The large piece lodged completely in her trachea, the grease making it impossible to dislodge while blocking her airway entirely. The chat initially erupted with laughter, thinking this was comedy, but as Crystal's face turned from red to deep purple, some realized something was wrong. Crystal frantically attempted the Heimlich maneuver on herself, stumbling around her space, knocking over the bowl. The viewer count climbed to 2,200 as word spread. Some viewers called 911 while others continued making jokes, unable to comprehend the reality unfolding. At 7:36 p.m., Crystal collapsed face first onto her kitchen floor. Her body convulsed as her brain was starved of oxygen. The stream continued broadcasting until her phone battery died. Emergency responders arrived at 7:52 p.m., but Crystal had been dead for 12 minutes. The coroner confirmed death by asphyxiation, with the pork belly still lodged in her trachea. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Despite takedown efforts, Crystal's final stream spread across social media, becoming a viral cautionary tale. Her death exposed the dark reality of content creation, where creators push dangerous boundaries for viewer engagement. A grim reminder of how pursuing viral fame can have deadly consequences. If these tragic streams left you shaken, brace yourself for what's next. It was March 8, 2018, and the late winter snow fell steadily outside a converted basement in Buffalo, New York, where the glow of RGB lighting and multiple monitors created a professional streaming setup that had cost more than 3 months of rent. Marcus Rivera adjusted his wireless headset as he prepared for what he had promised would be his most extreme challenge yet, his tired eyes reflecting the determination that had driven him to become one of the fastest-growing streamers in the competitive gaming scene. At 22, the college dropout had been building his following through increasingly dangerous real-world challenges that he broadcast live, combining gaming culture with extreme stunts that attracted viewers seeking authentic thrills. Marcus's streaming career had begun 10 months earlier, when he started incorporating physical challenges into his gaming streams, doing push-ups for every death, or eating increasingly spicy foods during difficult boss battles. What started as simple viewer engagement had evolved into elaborate stunts that blurred the line between gaming content and extreme sports. His audience, thousands of followers, had grown to expect bigger and more dangerous challenges with each stream. The pressure to create viral moments had led Marcus to plan increasingly risky stunts, culminating in his latest idea of streaming while performing parkour challenges in abandoned buildings around Buffalo. He had been scouting locations for weeks, finding a partially demolished warehouse that offered multiple levels and obstacles perfect for creating dramatic content. What Marcus hadn't fully considered was his lack of formal parkour training, having learned most of his techniques from YouTube videos and a few sessions at a local gym. He had been practicing basic moves for only 3 months, but his confidence had grown along with his viewer count. The abandoned warehouse presented challenges far beyond his skill level. That evening, Marcus began his stream by explaining his plan to navigate through the warehouse while maintaining commentary and interaction with his chat. He had mounted multiple cameras to capture different angles of his movements. His chat was excited and engaged, with many expressing both excitement and concern about the dangerous location. As Marcus made his way through the warehouse's lower levels, he began attempting increasingly complex parkour moves while responding to viewer comments and donations. His technique was sloppy but enthusiastic, and several near misses with concrete pillars and metal debris created dramatic moments that his audience loved. The combination of physical exertion and constant commentary began taking its toll as Marcus became winded and less focused. While attempting a precision jump between 2 concrete platforms on the warehouse's 2nd level, Marcus misjudged the distance and landed short, his feet slipping on loose debris as he tried to grab the edge. He fell 18 feet onto a pile of construction materials and rebar, suffering massive internal injuries as his cameras continued streaming the horrifying accident. His viewers watched in shock as Marcus lay motionless among the debris, many immediately calling emergency services. The stream continued for 35 minutes after his fall, with over 2,000 viewers watching helplessly as emergency responders worked to extract Marcus from the dangerous location. He was transported to the hospital with severe trauma, but died from his injuries despite surgical intervention. Marcus's death sparked important conversations about the pressure content creators face to create increasingly dangerous content. The incident added to ongoing discussions about how platforms should handle high-risk challenge content, especially as more creators pushed their limits on live streams. It was October 12, 2019, and the crisp autumn air in rural Montana carried the scent of pine and wood smoke as hunting season approached its peak. In a remote cabin nestled deep in the Glacier National Forest, the only sounds were the crackling of a wood-burning stove and wildlife calls echoing through the dense wilderness. Tyler Brooks adjusted his camouflage gear and checked his rifle one final time as he prepared for what he had promoted as his most ambitious outdoor stream yet. His eyes bright with excitement, the that had made him one of the fastest-growing survival streamers on the platform. At 25, the former military veteran had been building his following by broadcasting solo hunting and survival expeditions from increasingly remote locations, attracting thousands of viewers who appreciated his authentic wilderness expertise and military training. Tyler's streaming career had begun 18 months earlier as a way to share his passion for outdoor survival skills while dealing with isolation after returning from deployment. What started as simple camping tutorials had evolved into multi-day wilderness expeditions that he broadcast live, creating educational content that attracted viewers interested in survival techniques and authentic outdoor adventures. His military background gave him credibility that other outdoor streamers lacked. The pressure to create more engaging content had led Tyler to plan increasingly challenging solo expeditions, often venturing into remote wilderness areas during dangerous conditions. His audience had been requesting more extreme survival challenges, and Tyler felt compelled to deliver authentic wilderness content that kept his subscriber count growing. Tyler had been planning this particular stream for months, timing it to coincide with peak hunting season when large predators would be most active. He had chosen a remote section of Montana wilderness known for its grizzly bear population, an area that experienced hunters avoided during certain times of year. That morning, Tyler began his stream by explaining his survival plan while hiking deep into the wilderness, carrying minimal supplies to demonstrate authentic survival techniques. His chat was engaged and supportive, with many viewers appreciating his detailed explanations of tracking signs and wilderness safety protocols. As Tyler made his way deeper into the forest, he began following what appeared to be fresh deer tracks, explaining to viewers how to identify different animal signs while maintaining awareness of potential predators. His military training had taught him to be cautious around large wildlife, but his focus on creating engaging content and responding to viewer questions began to distract him from his surroundings. While setting up his evening camp near a stream, Tyler unknowingly positioned himself between a grizzly bear and her cubs, a situation that experienced wilderness guides know to avoid at all costs. The mother bear, protecting her young, charged Tyler without warning as his camera continued streaming the terrifying encounter. Despite his military training and survival experience, Tyler was unable to reach his bear spray in time to deter the 400-pound animal. The attack lasted several minutes as viewers watched helplessly, many frantically trying to contact park rangers and emergency services, while others attempted to determine Tyler's exact location from his previous stream footage. The bear's protective instincts drove her to continue the attack until she was certain the threat to her cubs had been eliminated, leaving Tyler with massive trauma that proved fatal within minutes. Search teams found him 2 days later after he failed to check in at his scheduled time. His GPS beacon had never been activated, indicating he was incapacitated before he could reach it. His camera equipment was found intact, having captured the entire encounter that was witnessed by over 2,200 viewers. The incident led to increased awareness about wildlife safety protocols among outdoor content creators. It was November 8th, 2014, and the evening air in San Antonio carried the scent of traditional Mexican spices as families throughout the city prepared dinner. In a modest house on the south side of town, the small kitchen had been transformed into a makeshift streaming studio with multiple camera angles and professional lighting. Carlos Mendoza wiped his hands on his apron as he reviewed his notes for the evening's cooking stream, his tired eyes reflecting both exhaustion from his restaurant job and excitement about sharing his grandmother's recipe. At 31, the line cook had been supplementing his modest income by streaming traditional Mexican cooking tutorials, building a loyal following of 5,000 viewers who appreciated his authentic recipes and warm teaching style. Carlos had discovered streaming 6 months earlier, when a co-worker suggested he share his extensive knowledge of traditional Mexican cuisine with a broader audience. His streams quickly gained popularity among viewers seeking authentic recipes that couldn't be found in mainstream cooking shows. Carlos took pride in explaining the cultural significance of each dish while demonstrating proper preparation methods. The success of his streams had encouraged Carlos to invest in professional-grade equipment, including a large commercial pressure cooker that would allow him to prepare more complex dishes. He had purchased the pressure cooker used from a restaurant supply company, unaware that the previous owner had been experiencing intermittent problems with the pressure release valve. Carlos had been planning his most ambitious stream yet, featuring chiles en nogada, a complex traditional dish that required precise timing and temperature control. The recipe held special significance as it had been passed down through his family for generations. That evening, Carlos began his stream with characteristic enthusiasm, explaining the historical significance of chiles en nogada while preparing the ingredients with meticulous care. His chat was active and engaged, with regular viewers sharing cooking stories and asking detailed questions. Carlos planned to incorporate the pressure cooker into part of his walnut sauce preparation. To speed up the stream, he decided to pre-soften the walnuts and heat the cream mixture under pressure, an unnecessary shortcut that he believed would save time on camera. As Carlos loaded ingredients into the pressure cooker and sealed the lid, he noticed the pressure gauge reading slightly higher than recommended, but attributed this to unfamiliarity with the equipment rather than a mechanical problem. He continued explaining the recipe while monitoring the cooker, occasionally glancing at the gauge as pressure climbed beyond safe operating levels. His viewers were focused on his demonstration and didn't notice the warning signs. The pressure cooker's safety valve suddenly failed, causing the lid to launch violently across the kitchen, while superheated steam and scalding liquid erupted from the opening in a devastating blast captured by Carlos's multiple cameras. The forceful ejection of steam and boiling contents severely burned Carlos and struck him with blunt trauma, while viewers watched in shock, many immediately calling emergency services as the kitchen filled with steam and smoke. Carlos collapsed off camera, while neighbors responded to the explosion sound, calling 911 and rushing to provide assistance. He was transported to the hospital with severe burns and internal injuries, but succumbed to his wounds despite medical efforts. The stream footage became crucial evidence in the investigation, which revealed the pressure cooker had a defective safety valve. The manufacturer issued a recall after the investigation confirmed the equipment defect, while Carlos's family received support from his streaming community through organized fundraisers. A culinary scholarship was established in his name at the local community college. It was December 14th, 2016, and the winter evening in Minneapolis had brought temperatures plummeting to -18 degrees Fahrenheit, with wind chills reaching dangerous levels that prompted city officials to issue extreme cold warnings. In a small apartment overlooking the frozen Mississippi River, the warmth from multiple space heaters created a stark contrast to the deadly conditions outside. Chloe Martinez adjusted her winter gear and checked her phone's battery level as she prepared for what she had promoted as her most extreme endurance challenge yet, her breath visible in the cold air despite being indoors. At 23, the adventure streamer had built a dedicated following of 4,000 viewers who tuned in to watch her attempt increasingly dangerous physical challenges that tested the limits of human endurance. Chloe's streaming career had begun 14 months earlier as a way to document her training for extreme sports competitions, but had evolved into a platform for attempting viral challenges that pushed her body to its breaking point. Her audience had grown to appreciate her fearless attitude and willingness to attempt stunts that other content creators wouldn't consider. She had been planning her polar plunge marathon for weeks, promising viewers an unprecedented test of cold weather survival. The pressure to create viral content had led Chloe to plan her most dangerous challenge yet, spending multiple hours outdoors in sub-zero temperatures while wearing minimal clothing to demonstrate extreme cold tolerance. She had been inspired by stories of Wim Hof and other cold exposure enthusiasts, but lacked proper training in cold weather survival techniques. Chloe had been promoting the stream as a fundraiser for homeless shelters, creating additional pressure to complete the full challenge despite dangerous weather conditions. Her viewers had pledged donations based on how long she could endure the extreme cold. That evening, Chloe began her stream by explaining the challenge rules while bundling up in multiple layers that she would gradually remove during outdoor segments. Her chat was excited but concerned, with many viewers expressing worry about the dangerous temperatures. The apartment's heating system struggled against the extreme cold, and frost began forming on the windows. As Chloe made her first venture outside wearing only light clothing, the shock of the sub-zero air immediately began affecting her body's core temperature. She maintained her characteristic upbeat commentary, while her skin quickly turned red and then pale. Signs of the early stages of hypothermia that she dismissed as normal cold exposure effects. After her third outdoor session, Chloe began showing clear signs of severe hypothermia, including confusion, slurred speech, and loss of coordination, but she attributed these symptoms to fatigue rather than cold injury. Her body had begun shutting down non-essential functions to preserve core temperature, but the gradual nature of hypothermia made it difficult for both Chloe and her viewers to recognize the life-threatening situation developing. During her final outdoor segment, Chloe collapsed in the snow outside her apartment building, her body no longer able to generate sufficient heat to maintain consciousness. Her viewers watched helplessly as she lay motionless in the snow, while her phone continued streaming, many frantically calling emergency services. Neighbors eventually discovered her unconscious form, but her core body temperature had dropped to fatal levels. Emergency responders worked to rewarm Chloe during transport to the hospital, but she had suffered irreversible organ damage from severe hypothermia and died despite medical intervention. Her final stream was witnessed by thousands of viewers. Chloe's death led to increased awareness about hypothermia dangers and added to broader discussions about the risks of extreme weather challenges on live streaming platforms. The homeless shelters she had been supporting received substantial donations in her memory. It was January 19, 2018, and the bitter Minnesota winter had blanketed Minneapolis in snow and ice, creating the kind of isolation that drove many residents indoors for months at a time. In the basement of a small rental house, a makeshift television studio had been created with secondhand equipment, where the warmth of creativity provided an escape from both the cold and harsh realities of unemployment. Derek Thompson adjusted his tie and shuffled through his interview notes as he prepared for what would unknowingly be his final broadcast, his hands shaking slightly from both nervousness and the effects of alcohol he had been consuming throughout the day. At 28, the unemployed communications graduate had been hosting a late-night talk show from his basement for 8 months, interviewing local musicians and artists while building a modest but dedicated audience of 6,500 viewers. Derek's streaming career had begun as a creative outlet during prolonged unemployment and personal struggles, providing him with a sense of purpose and connection that had been missing from his life. His show featured intimate interviews with emerging artists, creating a platform for local talent, while allowing Derek to utilize his communication skills meaningfully. However, Derek's personal struggles with depression and alcohol abuse had become increasingly apparent to regular viewers, who had noticed his erratic behavior and slurred speech during recent broadcasts. His drinking had intensified as unemployment stretched on, and his relationship ended, leaving him isolated and struggling to maintain his mental health. The streaming show had become both his lifeline and his enabler, providing social interaction, while giving him an excuse to drink alone in front of an audience. Derek had been receiving concerned messages from regular viewers about his health and drinking habits, but he had dismissed their worries while privately appreciating their attention. His basement studio had become his primary social environment, and parasocial relationships with viewers had replaced real-world connections that had deteriorated due to his drinking. That evening, Derek began his stream with his usual opening routine, but his condition was immediately apparent to viewers who had been following his decline. He was visibly intoxicated and emotionally unstable, discussing his personal struggles with unemployment and loneliness while attempting to maintain a professional demeanor. His chat was filled with concerned messages from regular viewers who had grown genuinely fond of him. As the stream progressed, Derek began consuming shots of whiskey on camera while reading viewer comments about his drinking, some encouraging him to seek help, while others seemed to find entertainment in his deteriorating condition. His speech became increasingly slurred, and his emotional state more volatile, swinging between self-pity and aggressive defensiveness when viewers expressed concern. Derek continued drinking throughout the broadcast, consuming a dangerous amount of alcohol while his judgment became increasingly impaired. His viewers watched helplessly as he ignored their pleas to stop drinking, many threatening to call emergency services if he didn't end the stream. His eyelids began fluttering as he struggled to stay focused on the screen, drifting in and out of consciousness while the chat filled with increasingly frantic messages. Derek suddenly became unresponsive and slumped forward at his desk while the stream continued running, his breathing becoming shallow and irregular as alcohol poisoning began shutting down his vital functions. Viewers frantically tried to contact emergency services, but Derek had already lost consciousness and was beyond help. He died from acute alcohol poisoning while his viewers watched helplessly. The incident added to ongoing discussions about how streaming platforms should respond to concerning on-stream behavior. Derek's family revealed his long struggle with depression and thanked viewers who had tried to help him. It was May 20th, 2013, and the late afternoon sky over central Kansas had taken on the ominous green-black color that experienced storm chasers recognized as a harbinger of extreme weather. The atmospheric conditions were perfect for tornado formation, with wind shear and temperature differentials, creating the kind of supercell thunderstorms that produce the most violent tornadoes on Earth. Ryan Mitchell checked his weather monitoring equipment one final time as he positioned his reinforced vehicle in the path of what meteorologists were predicting could be a significant tornado outbreak. At 35, the insurance adjuster had been combining his professional knowledge of storm damage with his passion for weather photography, building a dedicated following of 2,000 viewers who tuned in to watch him track severe storms across the Midwest while providing real-time weather information. Ryan's storm chasing had begun as a hobby during college, but had evolved into a serious pursuit that combined his professional expertise with his fascination for extreme weather phenomena. His streams provided real-time information to viewers in storm-threatened areas, often giving more immediate and localized observations than official weather services could provide. His audience included both weather enthusiasts and residents of tornado-prone areas who appreciated his detailed storm reports. The success of his streams had encouraged Ryan to invest in specialized equipment and a reinforced vehicle that allowed him to get closer to tornadoes than other chasers, creating dramatic footage that attracted larger audiences. However, the pressure to create increasingly spectacular content had led him to take greater risks, often positioning himself dangerously close to tornado paths. Ryan had been tracking the developing storm system for hours, providing commentary about atmospheric conditions while positioning himself to intercept what appeared to be a massive tornado forming in the rural farmland. His viewers were engaged and appreciative of his detailed explanations, many expressing concern for his safety, while others encouraged him to get closer. That afternoon, Ryan began streaming live as he pursued the massive tornado that was moving across the countryside, providing detailed commentary about the storm's intensity and projected path while positioning himself at what H-gistered wind speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour believed was a safe distance. His equipment re-hour as the tornado grew to over a mile wide, creating a monster storm that would rank among the most powerful ever recorded. Ryan continued his broadcast as the tornado approached, providing warnings to viewers about the storm's path and intensity, while documenting the incredible power of the natural phenomenon. His real-time observations were being shared across social media by viewers who found his detailed storm analysis valuable for understanding the developing weather situation. The tornado suddenly changed direction and intensified beyond all predictions, trapping Ryan in his vehicle as debris began filling the air around him. His camera equipment began failing as flying debris struck his vehicle, causing the video feed to cut in and out, while audio became increasingly distorted by wind noise and impact sounds. Ryan's transmission abruptly ended as his equipment was destroyed by the tornado's incredible force. His reinforced vehicle was found the next day, completely demolished and thrown over 400 feet from the road where he had been positioned. Based on the condition of the vehicle and the severity of the impact, investigators concluded he could not have survived the initial strike. The National Weather Service noted the extreme danger of approaching violent tornadoes and reiterated safety guidelines for storm spotters and chasers. His death led to renewed discussions about safety protocols for storm chasers and the risks of positioning vehicles too close to tornado paths. It was March 15, 2016, when 24-year-old Grant Hollister made what would become his final live stream from an abandoned grain elevator in Detroit, Michigan. The freelance photographer had built a reputation exploring forgotten industrial sites across the Midwest, documenting urban decay for his YouTube channel and its 4,000 devoted subscribers. Grant possessed the kind of fearless personality that made him perfect for urban exploration. His meticulous planning had safely guided him through over 200 abandoned structures, from crumbling factories to derelict hospitals. Each expedition was carefully researched, with backup plans and professional climbing equipment, ensuring his safety. The Detroit grain elevator had been on his target list for months, a 12-story concrete monument to industrial decline that promised spectacular footage. Arriving in the early afternoon on an overcast Tuesday, Grant carried his usual arsenal of cameras, climbing gear, and emergency supplies. The building loomed before him like a brutalist sculpture, its weathered concrete walls telling stories of Detroit's manufacturing heyday. He began his live stream shortly after arrival, showing viewers the deteriorated exterior while explaining his planned route to the summit. The first several floors went flawlessly. Grant navigated crumbling staircases and debris-filled corridors with practiced ease, maintaining constant commentary about the building's history and architectural details. His audience watched as he documented layers of graffiti and structural damage, each floor revealing new evidence of decades of abandonment. Everything changed when Grant reached the upper levels. He discovered a section where the concrete flooring had partially collapsed, creating a jagged 6-foot-wide hole surrounded by twisted rebar. Attempting to position his camera for a dramatic shot of the void below, he stepped backward onto what appeared to be solid concrete flooring. The century-old structure had other plans. The weakened concrete gave way instantly, sending Grant plummeting 90 feet through multiple floors of twisted metal and concrete debris. His body struck protruding steel beams twice during the horrific descent, causing massive internal trauma and multiple compound fractures. The sickening impacts echoed through the empty building as his equipment scattered around his motionless form. The live stream feed continued for several moments, showing only the aftermath, the camera swinging wildly, a blur of debris, and finally, a horrifying silence. Viewers watched helplessly as the scene unfolded, realizing something terrible had happened. The chat exploded with desperate messages as people tried to contact emergency services from across the country. First responders arrived within half an hour, but it was far too late. Grant was pronounced dead at the scene from massive internal bleeding and traumatic brain injury. The very technology that had made him famous had captured his final moments, not in words but in stark, tragic visual evidence. It was August 7, 2017, when 31-year-old Melinda Cross turned her Phoenix kitchen into a death trap during what should have been a routine cooking live stream. The former restaurant manager had successfully transitioned from the high-pressure world of professional kitchens to food blogging, building her cooking channel to 5,000 devoted followers who loved her bubbly personality and innovative fusion recipes. Melinda's infectious enthusiasm made even the most complex dishes seem approachable. Her background managing a busy southwestern restaurant had given her the technical skills and confidence to attempt challenging cooking methods, particularly high-heat techniques and dramatic flambeing presentations that made for compelling content. She had spent years perfecting these skills in professional kitchens, making her upcoming demonstration seem routine. The fatal evening was meant to showcase her signature Phoenix Fire fajitas, featuring a tableside flambe that had become her trademark dish. Melinda had prepared extensively, arranging her main camera in her home kitchen and pre-measuring all ingredients. The centerpiece of her preparation was a bottle of high-proof rum, essential for creating the dramatic flames that would give the dish its name. That evening, Melinda began streaming to over 1,000 live viewers, her characteristic cheerfulness immediately evident as she greeted her audience and began preparing vegetables and marinating chicken. Everything proceeded perfectly as she demonstrated knife techniques, and explained her fusion approach to traditional Mexican cuisine. The disaster began when Melinda started the flambe sequence. She poured rum over the sizzling chicken and vegetables in her large cast-iron skillet, the alcohol immediately beginning to steam from the intense heat. When she attempted to ignite the mixture with a long lighter, the flame traveled up the stream of rum still flowing from the bottle in her hand. The glass bottle cracked from the sudden heat, sending burning alcohol across Melinda's upper body and immediately igniting her loose cotton blouse. Within seconds, she was engulfed in flames from her waist up, suffering severe burns across her torso and arms. Her agonized screams filled the kitchen as she stumbled backward in panic. The situation escalated when Melinda knocked over a container of cooking oil during her desperate attempts to extinguish the flames. The oil spread fire across nearby surfaces, creating additional hazards as smoke rapidly filled the small kitchen space. Viewers watched in horror through the increasingly obscured camera feed as emergency calls flooded local dispatch. The live stream feed cut out within 90 seconds as smoke and heat overwhelmed the equipment. Emergency responders arrived within 8 minutes of the first 911 calls from viewers, but found Melinda unconscious from smoke inhalation and severe burns. She died en route to the hospital from respiratory failure and burns covering over 50% of her body. The incident sent shockwaves through the cooking content community. The brief but horrific footage, viewed by hundreds of thousands before removal, sparked widespread discussions about cooking safety and social media content creation. Phoenix Fire Department responded by offering free cooking safety seminars, specifically targeted at content creators, emphasizing the unique dangers of performing for cameras. Melinda's family established a foundation promoting kitchen safety education for content creators, working with culinary schools to develop guidelines for safe filming practices. The tragedy highlighted how the pressure to create compelling content can lead to fatal miscalculations, even for experienced cooks in familiar environments. Today, Melinda's story serves as a sobering reminder that fire safety protocols become even more critical when performing for an audience, and that even routine cooking techniques carry deadly risks when proper precautions are ignored. It was June 22, 2015, when 28-year-old Tristan Avery prepared for what would become his final wingsuit flight from the towering sandstone cliffs of Moab, Utah. The professional extreme sports athlete and stunt coordinator had built his reputation on pushing boundaries, accumulating over 400 successful jumps from locations worldwide while amassing 3,000 followers across multiple social media platforms. Tristan possessed the kind of confident, risk-taking personality that made him a natural for extreme sports. His background as a stunt coordinator for action films had given him meticulous attention to safety protocols, even while pursuing increasingly dangerous challenges. The Moab location was one of his favorites, a 1,400-foot sandstone cliff formation that offered spectacular footage and challenging flight lines through the desert landscape. Weather conditions were absolutely perfect that morning, with minimal wind and crystal-clear visibility stretching across the Utah desert. Tristan had spent the previous day testing his equipment and studying wind patterns, confident that everything was aligned for another successful jump to add to his growing video collection. That morning, Tristan began his live stream with thousands of viewers watching as he conducted his pre-flight equipment check. He spent considerable time demonstrating his wingsuit, parachute system, and backup safety devices while hiking to the jump point, his enthusiasm infectious as he explained the technical aspects of the planned flight. Positioning himself at the cliff edge at 12:15, Tristan made his final preparations with the practiced efficiency of a seasoned professional. The jump began flawlessly, his wingsuit deployed correctly as he achieved the perfect gliding position, soaring through the desert air like a human bird of prey. For nearly a minute, everything went according to plan. Tristan maintained perfect form as he glided away from the cliff face, his helmet-mounted camera capturing the breathtaking landscape rushing past below. At approximately 1,200 feet above the desert floor, he began preparing for his planned parachute deployment. Then disaster struck without warning. A sudden violent downdraft caught his wingsuit with tremendous force, throwing him into an uncontrolled tumble that no amount of experience could have anticipated. The chaotic rotation made it impossible to maintain proper body position as he spun helplessly through the air, rapidly losing the altitude needed for safe parachute deployment. Fighting against the disorienting spin, Tristan managed to deploy his main parachute approximately 400 feet above the desert floor. However, the violent rotation had twisted his body position, causing the parachute lines to wrap around his torso and legs. The chute deployed partially but became fatally compromised, providing insufficient lift to slow his descent. With limited altitude remaining, Tristan attempted to deploy his reserve parachute, but the tangled main chute lines prevented proper deployment. The reserve opened partially, but couldn't generate enough drag to save him from the rapidly approaching desert floor. Tristan struck the hard-packed earth at devastating speed, suffering massive trauma that proved instantly fatal. His helmet-mounted camera was damaged on impact, but had captured the entire sequence leading up to the accident. Emergency responders reached the remote location within an hour, guided by GPS coordinates from concerned viewers who had witnessed the live stream. The footage became crucial evidence in an investigation that revealed how the unusual downdraft conditions had created a perfect storm of circumstances beyond any pilot's control. The tragedy prompted renewed focus on extreme sports safety protocols. The wingsuit community implemented enhanced weather monitoring requirements and improved training for handling emergency situations at low altitudes. Tristan's death led to a better understanding of desert cliff wind patterns and mandatory safety briefings that have since helped other pilots recognize and avoid similar conditions. The Moab wingsuit community honors Tristan's memory with improved safety standards while continuing to pursue the sport he loved, always mindful that even perfect conditions can change in an instant. It was October 13, 2018, when 19-year-old Courtney Blake climbed to the rooftop of an abandoned factory in Cleveland, Ohio, for what would become her final social media stunt. The college sophomore studying marketing had built a following of 4,000 Instagram followers through increasingly dangerous challenges and stunts that showcased her outgoing personality and fearless approach to viral content creation. Courtney's willingness to attempt any trending challenge had made her incredibly popular among teenage followers who eagerly awaited her next death-defying post. Her previous rooftop photography sessions across Cleveland had garnered thousands of views, each location more dangerous than the last. The abandoned 6-story brick factory represented the ultimate prize, a building scheduled for demolition that would provide the perfect backdrop for her planned final rooftop series. She arrived with her boyfriend Jake, who served as her cameraman and safety spotter for these dangerous shoots. The century-old factory loomed before them, its deteriorating brick facade and broken windows creating an apocalyptic atmosphere that would photograph beautifully against the overcast autumn sky. That afternoon, Courtney began live streaming to 1,800 viewers, showing the building's imposing exterior while explaining her planned route to the roof. The climb took considerable time through deteriorated stairwells filled with debris and broken glass, Jake following closely behind with backup camera equipment. Reaching the rooftop, Courtney immediately began attempting various poses near the building's edge. Her audience watched as she performed handstands dangerously close to the 6-story drop, each stunt more reckless than the last. The crumbling brick ledge showed obvious signs of deterioration, but Courtney's focus remained on creating the perfect shot. For her finale, she decided to recreate a viral challenge that involved hanging from the building's edge by her fingertips, a stunt that had already claimed several lives across social media platforms. Despite Jake's visible nervousness, Courtney positioned herself at the ledge, gripping the weathered brick with both hands. As she lowered herself over the edge, her 115-pound weight proved too much for the century-old masonry. The brick ledge crumbled instantly, sending chunks of debris cascading toward the concrete loading dock 60 feet below. Courtney followed seconds later, her terrified scream echoing across the empty industrial district. The impact against the concrete was devastating. Courtney suffered severe skull fractures, complete spinal cord severing, and massive internal bleeding that ended her life instantly. Jake's anguished screams and frantic attempts to call for help were broadcast live for several minutes before he managed to end the stream, but the damage was already done. Paramedics arrived within 20 minutes of the fall, but Courtney was pronounced dead at the scene. The live stream footage, viewed by hundreds of thousands before removal, showed every horrific detail of her final moments, traumatizing viewers worldwide and sparking immediate controversy about social media's influence on dangerous behavior. The incident ignited nationwide discussions about platform responsibility and the pressure young people face to create increasingly dangerous content for online fame. Cleveland authorities responded by implementing stricter penalties for trespassing in abandoned buildings and increasing security patrols around known social media hotspots. Courtney's parents channeled their grief into advocacy work, becoming prominent voices for social media safety education and platform accountability for dangerous content. The factory where Courtney died has been demolished, but her story continues to serve as a cautionary tale about the deadly intersection of social media fame and teenage risk-taking behavior in America's digital age. It was January 28, 2017, when 35-year-old Derek Langston fired up his live stream for what would become his final automotive repair demonstration in his Bakersfield, California auto shop. The small business owner had built a loyal following of 3,000 subscribers who tuned into his educational streams, drawn to his methodical personality and ability to explain complex mechanical procedures in simple terms. Derek's 15 years of mechanical experience had earned him a reputation as one of Bakersfield's most trusted mechanics. His decision to live stream his work had proven brilliant for business, attracting customers who appreciated his transparent approach and educational content. Unlike flashy automotive YouTubers, Derek focused on real-world repairs that everyday drivers could relate to. The fatal day involved diagnosing and repairing a lifted pickup truck with suspected transmission problems. The 7,000-pound vehicle required Derek to work underneath it, a routine procedure he had performed hundreds of times throughout his career. His hydraulic lift system had been recently inspected and showed no signs of wear. That afternoon, Derek started his stream with several hundred live viewers watching as he explained the truck's symptoms and his diagnostic plan. His methodical approach was immediately evident as he walked viewers through proper lift procedures, emphasizing safety checks that many mechanics skip in their daily routines. For the better part of an hour, everything proceeded normally. Derek demonstrated proper lifting techniques, explained the truck's four-wheel drive system, and showed viewers how to identify transmission problems through visual inspection and fluid analysis. His audience appreciated the educational value as he prepared to remove the transmission. Later in the stream, Derek positioned himself underneath the raised truck to begin the transmission removal process. The massive vehicle loomed above him, supported by hydraulic cylinders that had never failed in his shop's 10-year history. As he worked to disconnect transmission lines, he noticed hydraulic fluid beginning to leak from the primary lift cylinder. Instead of immediately lowering the vehicle and investigating the leak, Derek made a fatal decision. Confident in his experience and eager to complete the repair for his audience, he attempted to tighten the hydraulic fitting while remaining underneath the truck. The compromised hydraulic seal had other plans. The seal failed catastrophically without warning. The lift dropped instantly, bringing 7,000 pounds of steel crashing down onto Derek's chest and abdomen. The impact caused immediate massive internal trauma, crushing his ribcage and rupturing vital organs, while pinning him helplessly beneath the vehicle. Derek's legs and arms remained visible to the camera, continuing to move for a brief time as he struggled beneath the crushing weight. The live stream captured his muffled cries for help and the sound of his increasingly labored breathing as internal bleeding and organ failure took their toll. A customer who heard the commotion immediately called 911, but Derek's injuries were beyond medical intervention. He died from crushing injuries and massive internal bleeding within minutes of the lift failure. His final breaths broadcast live to hundreds of horrified viewers. The incident triggered immediate industry-wide safety reviews. OSHA investigators discovered that the hydraulic seal failure resulted from a known manufacturing defect that had affected dozens of similar lift systems nationwide. New regulations emerged, requiring redundant safety systems for automotive lifts used in filmed content. Derek's family received a substantial settlement from the lift manufacturer, which they used to establish a foundation promoting automotive safety education. Today, his tragedy serves as a reminder that equipment failures can strike without warning. It was September 4, 2016, when 26-year-old Angela Rowe arrived at Yellowstone National Park's Norris Geyser Basin for what would become her final wildlife biology research expedition. The graduate student had built her wild science channel to 5,000 followers through her patient, scientific personality and genuine passion for conservation education, making complex ecological concepts accessible to viewers worldwide. Angela's academic background in wildlife biology had given her extensive experience with extreme environments, particularly thermal features where unique microbial life thrived in conditions that would kill most organisms. Her thesis research focused on thermal pool ecosystems, and she had obtained special permits to film in Yellowstone's restricted areas for educational content. The Norris Geyser Basin represented the perfect location for her research, known for having some of the hottest thermal features in the park, with temperatures regularly exceeding 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Angela was particularly excited about documenting a newly formed hot spring that had appeared following recent seismic activity in the region. That morning, Angela began streaming to nearly 900 live viewers, explaining thermal pool formation and the remarkable extremophile organisms that somehow managed to survive in these hellish conditions. Her enthusiasm was infectious, as she described the delicate mineral formations and rainbow-colored bacterial mats that created Yellowstone's otherworldly landscape. For over an hour, Angela safely documented various pools while maintaining proper distances and following park safety protocols to the letter. Her scientific approach impressed viewers as she explained the chemistry behind the superheated water and acidic conditions that made these features so dangerous to human life. Later in her stream, she approached the newly formed thermal pool to collect water samples for her research. The pool appeared stable, surrounded by what looked like solid mineral crust that had formed over months of thermal activity. Angela positioned her sampling equipment carefully, following procedures she had used successfully countless times before. The thin mineral crust had other plans. As Angela leaned forward to collect her sample, the seemingly solid ground gave way under her weight, sending her tumbling backward into the 185-degree acidic water with a splash that would haunt viewers forever. The superheated water immediately began causing devastating chemical and thermal burns to over 80% of her body. The acidic composition, similar to battery acid, ate through her clothing and skin, while the extreme temperature caused instant third-degree burns that penetrated to the bone. Angela's agonized screams lasted briefly before shock and respiratory failure from inhaling superheated steam rendered her unconscious. The thermal pool's acidic water continued its deadly work, even as she floated motionless, her body chemistry unable to cope with the extreme conditions. Park rangers arrived quickly after receiving emergency calls from horrified viewers, but safety protocols prevented immediate extraction from the acidic pool. The water's extreme temperature and chemical composition made rescue attempts impossible without specialized equipment. Angela was pronounced dead at the scene from severe thermal burns, chemical burns, and respiratory failure. The incident led to increased safety barriers and warning systems around Yellowstone's thermal features. New regulations were implemented requiring additional safety equipment and mandatory spotters for all research filming in thermal areas. Angela's research was completed posthumously by her colleagues and contributed to important discoveries about extremophile organisms, ensuring that her scientific legacy would continue advancing human understanding of life in extreme conditions. These tragic moments remind us how quickly things can go wrong. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now